we're going to turn it over now to Pooja Shrivastava, who is going to talk about empowering employees with numbers, which is not my strong suit. So this is a really important talk, I expect, for many of us.
Thank you so much for this warm welcome. And just before I begin my talk, I just want to say fabulous talk on behavioral interventions. And this just lays the foundation of what I'm going to talk about. I would say that when I started with security awareness, I was quite naive in this field with few budding security awareness ideas. The SANS community and the conferences that I've attended previously, it just gave me a lot of confidence in the kickstart to just mature the program. So whenever I had question, apart from discussing it within the team, I just posted it on the SANS community, and then everyone is so supportive. They just give prompt answers, and it has helped me out to mature the program so much. It's pretty amazing. Most of the time, we face budget constraints, lack of support from the business, and employees treating it as a non-value add activity. These are the common challenges that we face as security awareness professionals. But I have a strong conviction that if we focus on what we have, we can create a new realm of awareness, which is not a burden, but something that drives long-term behavior change. And with this thought in mind, I would want to present my topic for today, which is Empower Employees Nudging by Numbers. And as the name suggests, it gives clarity and control to employees to self-assess and improve their security posture. For us, there was no blueprint, so we had to start from scratch. But I just hope that this topic fits into your current awareness program, and probably a couple of months down the line, you can share some innovative ideas which we can include in our program. Sometime back, I read a CEO using burning platform metaphor to motivate his employees to make some drastic and bold change. Now, using a crisis to drive change often sends people running towards the door instead of raising their hands for help. No doubt, fear occasionally must be part of the training menu, but it must be an appetizer and not the main course. Yes, there are bad apples in the organization that needs to be disciplined, but we should spend time with good apples also. Everyone experiences cognitive dissonance in some form in their life. Let's say you have a dog that you take for daily walks around your neighborhood. And like any responsible dog owner, you carry plastic bags and always clean up after your dog has done the business. But one day you just forgot to carry the plastic bag. And at that very moment, the dog chooses to do the business. So what you do, you just take a look around and then call the dog and hustle away. Now, when you reach home, you feel guilty about this because you know that it was not the right thing to do. But then you start convincing yourself by saying it's just a one-off time, and you're not the only one who does it. If other people don't bother to do it, then why should you be bothered? So like this, you start giving explanation to yourself. And this is cognitive dissonance, wherein you're trying to justify or rationalize a decision that you have taken or an action that you have taken. Resolving cognitive dissonance can often lead to positive changes. So it doesn't always have to be drastic changes. Sometimes it is just a matter of changing perspective or developing a new pattern of thinking. So how can we get employees change their perspective and not treat security awareness as a burden? Let's first look at the ways through which we learn today. So these are the three common things that I felt that, through which we learn. First one is tiny habits. And according to behavioral scientist BJ Fogg, simplicity changes behavior. So if there is a tough task that is given to you, for example, you have to clean up your entire house, you won't do it unless you have high motivation to do it. But when there is a relatively easy task, like putting a magazine back on the shelf, you don't rely on motivation. So to create a lifelong habit, the focus should be on training your mind to do small adjustments and then build upon it. Another one is social proof. Now, referral programs are one of the best ways to highlight social proof. So if you have customers who can speak about how great your product or service is, then people will be more inclined to listen to it and buy the product, because there is a built-in trust which is already there. So you don't have to work much. Another one is gamification, which is so much in today. So gamification basically integrates idea from game theory into our everyday lives. Recently, we launched online scavenger hunt, and thanks to the SAMS conference in August, I attended one of the talks which was on online scavenger hunt, and we built upon that idea. And when we launched this in our organization, it was received so well, and the participation and the reviews were extremely fabulous. Now, let me give you a brief idea that how we function at Genpact. So in 2015, when we started the program, um, till date, we have tried to mature the program in such a way that initially it was just trying to give security awareness to each and every employee in a very basic fashion. And slowly and gradually, we developed our baseline controls. We improved the maturity of our program, and then we focused on the key profiles, tried to make it as personalized as possible. And 2020, of course, enhanced our remote training capability. So this is how our program currently looks like. And we seem to be on the right track. So we had a training completion rate, which was more than 95%. Our internal phishing click rate was less than 5% in most of the assessments, which was pretty okay. We engaged with CEB, which is now Gartner, and as part of their annual employee service, they started surveying our employees. So they basically check the effectiveness of the awareness program by surveying employee, and then they identify insecure behaviors, and they give us ideas or tactics through which we can improve it. We have been consistently getting a score of 95 plus out of 100, and we are in the top 2 among all the participating organizations. So all this indicated that we are on the right track. But really, because we were seeing security incidents. So when we looked at the incident tracker, it just forced us to think that probably there is something missing in our awareness framework, some important ingredient. Since the outbreak of COVID-19 crisis, cyber criminals have become even more active, and there is a surge in cyber attacks. Now, as remote working becomes the new normal, it has also resulted in the growing number of threats for many organizations, and Genpact also is not untouched by this. So this gave us a compelling reason to rethink on our security awareness framework. And as BJ Fox says, they just make it simple, work on tiny behaviors that can become habits. So we wanted to understand what was causing this bad behavior. Did users really understand the risk, or we were just overloading them with a lot of information, with a lot of training? Now, I'm sure everyone in this forum would agree that changes in behavior and culture are hard to quantify. And just training compliance and phishing assessments are just not the right matrix. I mean, they're very, very important matrix, but they're not the only matrix. And that's when we thought that we have to take a fresh approach and rethink on our security awareness framework. So we read a lot of content on behavioral economics to gain more perspective. One pivotal thought that came across was to make users aware of what they think is important to them, and just not overload them with all the information, and then make it personalized so that they also relate it to themselves in their personal life. So this gave birth to My Cyber Score. Interesting as it sounds, it comprises of attributes beyond phishing and training compliance. So it gave user an overall score on parameters based on user behavior, actions, privileges, role profile, and the kind of data that they deal with. So now, instead of asking users to take a certain training or certain action, we gave them a reason that why they should do it and how it impacts them directly. So just imagine that you getting a personalized report of your health, and you take only those medicines that are required instead of taking a rack full of medicines, which involves multivitamins, calcium, iron, and all sort of supplements. You would not want to do that and would want to go with the former one. And this is how our current CyberScore email looks like. This is just the first part. In the next screen, I'll show you the rest. It clearly outlines the individual behavior, status of the device, external factors, and the subsequent actions that are required. The language was made jargon-free because this was going to non-InfoSec audience, and we wanted to make it really simple. We worked on the design and we wanted to make it visually appealing to the audience. So there were several iterations, and the one that you see on the screen is the current one that you're using. We wanted to keep it less verbose, as we did not want to make it too much of information on the screen so that it just fades away the essence. So we wanted to keep it simple. We didn't have a blueprint, and we decided not to go external, and we wanted to try it in-house. So to make it doable, we picked up small, high-risk group. And this particular group dealt with a lot of sensitive data, had privileged accesses. So superficially, they were doing great, which means on training completion, on phishing click rate, everything was hunky-dory. There was no problem that we see, or there was nothing alarming. But when we dug deeper and we started with more granular data points, we understood that yes, there are behaviors that needs to be addressed. To make it catchy for the user, we gave only one score so that they can track that score and we can track their progress as well. Now, let me talk about the approach that we took. Now, during this pandemic, working remotely is the new normal. So the IT infrastructure, like access to open internet, email sending rights, monitoring mechanism, and probably stricter controls. Everything has to be evaluated and see if it is working fine or not. So the first step that we took was to look at the sources of risk. Now, there were 3 questions that we asked. One was, how do users work? Which means their machine, whether they work on a PC or on a laptop, what are the controls that are there in their PC and laptop? Second question that we asked was, where do they work? Which means the environment that they work in, what data they have access to, the privileges that they have. So these were the questions that were asked in the second discussion. The third question that we asked was, how do they react? Which means their behavior. So if there is a simulation exercise, how are they reacting on that? If there is an incident, why is it happening? So this was the third part of our criteria. And then we had a lot of risk, which made the basis of our first draft of the criteria sheet. Now, all the risks cannot be taken into consideration because many a times the risks are not quantifiable. For example, with GDPR and new regulations, privacy regulation coming into place, we wanted to focus on personal data that the user handles. But it was very difficult for us to calculate how much personal data the person handles in a day. So we picked up parameters which were quantifiable and had some user interaction. So the first parameter, which was on how the users work. So this is basically core IT controls or endpoint controls like antivirus effectiveness, patching, proxy control, encryption, etc. Now, these are basically IT controlled IT controls. But it was important for the user to know that why they should keep the system updated and what could be the repercussions of not doing so. So this was the first set of criteria. Now came the question, where do they work? So we did a risk profiling of the user and answered questions like what kind of data they have access to, like if they have PII, SPI, PHI, credit card data, financial data, whether they have local admin access or any other privilege access, what kind of internet access they have. So these were the questions that were included in that criteria. We also gave a threat score to the user. which means how they are behaving in the outside organization. So their presence outside Genpact, like if they are part of any active breach, which means their email address has been compromised, or are they receiving any targeted malicious email, which means their email address might be registered in some non-business website. And then came the third parameter, which focused on user behavior. It answered questions like how do they react in certain situations? So this included their phishing assessment results, like if they have clicked or downloaded any attachment in the simulation exercise, whether they have reported it to us or not. And then what was their status in the incident? Like, were they part of any security incidents like DLP, password sharing, asset loss, etc. Then we looked at the mandatory training compliance, which means if they have successfully completed training within the given time frame. Second step was to identify data sources. From where can we get this data of the selected parameters? So we liaised with the technology team, matrix and benchmarking team, incident response team, and eventually we got a master sheet which had a feed from all these sources, and these were all in-house. So we created a 30-point score for each parameter, and this score was awarded against the risk, which means higher the score, better managed is the risk. For example, if the user has antivirus and encryption working on the system, he would get 30, otherwise he gets a 0 point. For phishing, we had the criteria like if the user has not clicked on the phishing email and has reported it to us, it would give a 30-point score to him. But if he has not clicked, but has not even reported as well, so it will give him 25. And if the user has clicked, he will get a 0 point. Another one was on targeted malicious email. So if the user has received any targeted malicious email, he would get 0, otherwise full score. So this is how we developed the logic, and we started giving a score against each parameter that we selected. Then we created interventions to build accountability among users. These were tiny nudges, which were designed to ensure that it is not taxing for the user and it is effective also. So if the user has access to PII, for example, so he should know the significance and impact of dealing with such data. So we created a quick 5-minute video with a little humor in it and added an acknowledgement after that. So this was to build accountability, because when users click on I agree or I understand, they tend to read it carefully and then they try to reflect on that what they are signing in for. For endpoint controls, we coordinated with the IT team and we created a ticket for this particular category. So this was just a one click to inform IT team that yes, there are problems on my system which needs to be remediated, and this has to be done on priority. So this was the deal that we had with the IT team. For incidents, we created an automated email for the user where he had to reflect on the incident. So generally, the entire incident journey for a user is he's put on a spot, he's asked a lot of questions, and then probably there is some penalty, some name shame, something like this. But we wanted to make it little reflective for the user. So we asked the user to reflect on the incident, write down the points that led to that incident and what were the learnings from that incident. And that email was sent to a dedicated mailbox for us to go through it. For local admin, for example, while requesting user access, the user has to first acknowledge that what are the repercussions of misusing this particular access. And then this particular approval also goes to the line manager, and the access is made time bound. And the lease time frame is automatically checked in, so that there is something in his mind that this is the lease time frame that he can opt for. So like this, we created a lot of short and targeted interventions, and this score is published every month. Third step was to roll out the campaign. So we rolled out the campaign to a pilot group first. Now, the group that we picked was a high risk profile group. It had access to a lot of sensitive data, elevated access, plus it was a merger also, which means they came from a different culture. They had different expectations also. So we got their leader on board and we published their score. The fourth step, and I feel that this was the most important step in this entire journey, was to track progress, learn from our mistakes, and then evolve. For example, when we created this IT ticket, we asked the user to raise the ticket, and we parallelly asked the IT team to follow up with the user and get that ticket closed. However, this did not work much because there was a lack of interaction between the IT team and the user. Sometimes the user did not raise the ticket. Sometimes the IT team did not follow up much to close the ticket. So then we decided, let's not make IT and user interact directly and have this dependency for closure. Rather, we created a quick form in which the user just had to fill the details, simple details, not much technical ones, so that he feels accountable for the remediation process. Parallelly, we got that user database infused in the existing remediation process. And now what happens is that the user just has to fill the form, while in the existing remediation process, we are just sending out a dump and the system automatically gets remediated. The IT ticket that we got created is just used as an escalation point right now. So if the remediation doesn't happen within a 1 month span, then it is used as an escalation point. Otherwise, with the form and us sending the data dump, it just works fine. We are working on more nudges, getting data around work from home controls, like on how to use Microsoft Teams, how people are using the privacy settings in Zoom meetings, whether they are using OneDrive or not. So we're just trying to build more nudges, just trying to identify how we can make it better and more incisive. And here what you see on the screen are a couple of parameters that I've already spoken about. So you see endpoint, threat profile, and security behavior, which makes the risk score. And these are just few. There is a complete list, and I just thought it will be too verbose to put it on the screen. Now, let's look how we progressed and how it was received by the user. So here is a case study of a user from 2 consecutive months. Now in September, when we published the score, it was 310. The user had defects in his endpoint security. So instead of getting into the details, we just informed the user that your system is vulnerable and it is missing some vulnerability scan. So we made it very simple for the user to understand and asked the user to get in touch with the IT team for remediation. This user was part of the group which had a dedicated VIP support team. For any IT related issue, they just have to ping the IT team or the VIP support team, and they take care of all the technical problems. So user took action, and next month when we collected the endpoint data, it was rectified. So it just boosted the score. Same user had access to a lot of PII data. And we had some time back introduced privacy essential trainings, which was not mandatory, hence was not taken by a lot of employees. Now, this hook that you see on the screen that you have just accessed PII a couple of minutes back, it just created a lot of inquisitiveness amongst the user. It intrigued them and it made them question regarding data handling. So they took that particular training followed by an acknowledgement, and we have seen a lot of users taking that training, giving that acknowledgement. So we believe that yes, this privacy essential training is getting into the system now. Now this user did the same and it boosted the score. However, in October, the user received a malicious email and this just impacted the score. So the best part about the entire cyber score that I feel was that the user took ownership. He understood why this is important to do, and we quantified his actions and made it measurable too. Now we have a holistic score. based on key security parameters, and we are publishing it monthly to the user. And we have made it simple and as relatable as possible. Still, there is a lot of scope, and we're regularly brainstorming on it. But overall, we have seen positive changes and definitely some behavioral shift after the launch of Scorecard.
Erin?
Have, sorry. Okay. Users have started asking questions. That is very, very important. And it's just gives a lot of hope. So they've started asking questions. They have started taking ownership to manage it. Now, because it is called My Score, it brings a lot of accountability. Now, due to focused tracking, we are able to identify at-risk users whose score has been constantly low in the last few months. And now we are trying to understand that what can be done, why this is happening, and how we can simplify the actions further. Our leaders have been very supportive, and they not only gave us ideas to improve, they are satisfied the way it has shaped up. Now, while people are working from home, this exercise gives a lot of visibility on how our controls are working, which areas we need to focus more. And we just don't want to stop here. We want to bring behavioral shift in the long run. So we want to increase the scope of our cyber score. We want to add more nudges, bring more accountability, and get more leaders on board. See, till the time leaders are not on board, this activity cannot be a success. So we want to engage leaders. We want to share the value of this activity and get this highlighted in town halls and Leaders Connect, so that users take it more seriously and they know that they are being monitored by business too. What I would recommend as an immediate step to those who are planning to launch this in their organization is to first conduct a survey. Just speak with the compliance team or the business team and identify if the users are feeling burdened with their security training. Align the risk of your organization with the security risk, and then focus on the one which needs attention. You should also refer to the incident tracker. Look at the recurring incidents, its impact, and the reason for occurrence. And this will help you build incisive nudges. And trust me, this helped us a lot. Once you have done your groundwork, now the real work begins, which means you have to identify the existing data set. IT team will be your go-to team, because this is the team which is going to give you the data dump also, and it is going to help you in remediation also. So as I said initially, think beyond phishing assessment and mandatory training compliance, and try to identify more behaviors which need attention. So once you have the list of behaviors, work on the logic, and this logic may just differ from organization to organization and the security controls that you have already in place. Don't roll it at a high scale initially, just pick up small group first, maybe a high risk group. You should have their leader on board. So just speak with the leader, tell them the value of this activity, and probably you can just give them their score initially, and then they would be able to relate to it more. And when you have these basic points in mind, you would already have dwelled into a thought process regarding this scorecard and what metrics align with your organization culture. At the end, I would just like to conclude by saying that people respond to numerical nudges, which can be strategically used to alter behaviors. So develop a scorecard that users can relate to the most. And the current work from home situation gives you all the more reason to innovate the ways to motivate people, train and educate them. So this brings us to the end of the talk. Thank you so much.